Did you ever think that getting the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis would actually be a relief? Neil Schulman is going to talk about his issues with misdiagnosis and the problem getting to the diagnosis when he had all kinds of vague and unusual symptoms that no one could explain. Unfortunately, it is not rare for the diagnosis of MS to take some time, so listen to Neil as he tells you about his story with diagnosis.
Hi, my name is Neil Schulman. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis about 2 years ago. And this is just a little bit about the beginning of that journey, because what I really found when I was being diagnosed was that while the MS specialists are fantastic and know what's going on, I'm not so certain the rest of the medical community and everybody who's a neurologist out there does know what's going on in the world of multiple sclerosis, the world of treatments, and what it really means today to be diagnosed with MS. And I was diagnosed by a neurologist who was not a specialist in multiple sclerosis. So in order to really understand kind of where I came from to get to this point, like many people who've been diagnosed with MS, I had a whole bunch of different issues throughout the years that kind of led to the diagnosis, most of which were misdiagnosed or not diagnosed. So my MS story really starts back probably in 2010 or 2011 when I started noticing problems with my eyes. I couldn't wear contact lenses anymore. I'd worn them for years, since I was 13 years old. At this point, I was 25, and all of a sudden, can't really wear contact lenses anymore. So I was looking at different doctors, going to different doctors, went to an ophthalmologist to try and see what was wrong with me, and he looked at me right away and said, "Oh, I know what's wrong with you." Didn't really look at my eyes, didn't do much more than that. He goes, "It's allergies, it's obviously allergies. I can look at your eyes and see that it's allergies." Now that I have MS, now that I've been diagnosed with MS, I know it probably wasn't allergies. So he gives me some hypoallergenic contact lens solution, tells me to buy those little eye drops that come in the one dose things, sends me on my way. As you can imagine, didn't clear up the eye problems, just over time it kind of ended up getting better. Fast forward a couple of years, and I, in between having some more problems with my eyes on and off, one day I lose feeling in my right leg, completely up and down the leg. So that seems odd to me. I was probably 27, 28 at the time. I did what anybody else would have done, and I said, "Oh, this will probably go away." Well, didn't go away. So I went to a doctor. I said to him, "I've lost feeling in my right leg, I can't feel anything. I think it might be related to a herniated disc," which I'd had since I was 22, 23. And he looks at me and says, "Oh, that's probably not it." And I was like, "Well, also, my father had multiple sclerosis. I don't know if that kind of fits in with this," which should have probably been a clue. To which he responded to me, "You look nervous." I was like, "Yes, I am nervous. I have no feeling in my right leg." And his response was, "Well, no, but maybe that's what's causing it." No, I'm nervous because I can't feel my leg, not I can't feel my leg because I'm nervous. So he hands me 2 prescriptions for muscle relaxers and Xanax and sends me on my way. Well, thank you, but not really sure that's going to help me very much. It didn't help me very much. It actually kind of made things feel worse. So after that doctor sends me on my way, a week or two goes by, still no feeling in my right leg. At this point, it starts to get even a little bit more worrisome. So I go to an orthopedist, and they do some tests, do an MRI on my back, come back, and they say, "Well, you do have this herniated disc, so maybe that's what's causing it." Their solution was to give me an injection of steroids into my spine, which accidentally treated the MS symptoms, but again, doesn't really go towards solving the actual problem I was having. So at this point, we're getting a little bit closer to my MS diagnosis. But things are still happening to me that are odd. My right hand started feeling clumsy when I was at work, really unable to use a mouse correctly, and then my right pinky went numb. So I don't know what to do at this point. I feel like the steroid injection solved the leg problem, so I'm still not putting all this together. So I go to a hand and wrist specialist, and he says, "Oh, that sounds like cubital tunnel syndrome. There's nothing really we can do for it outside of surgery, which you don't need because it's not so bad yet. So just, wait on it. It'll probably go away." So that one went away. This whole time, my leg was kind of blinking in and out, and whether or not I had feeling on it. My wrist was not doing great. My hand and wrist were not doing great. And then it kind of all came to a head in late March, early April of 2015, when I had vertigo. And I've never had vertigo before, but I can pretty much guarantee it was the worst case of vertigo anyone has ever had in history. I was stuck in bed for days at a time, unable to move. If I moved my head even a little bit, I was instantly sick. So after a few days of surviving on nothing but grapes because it was all that I could eat and I couldn't move my head enough to drink, I felt well enough to go to the doctor. My GP sees me, says, yeah, this is vertigo. You need fluids. Can't do it here. Go to the hospital. Went to the hospital, was given fluids. They said, you've never had vertigo before. At this point, I was 31. They're like, we're going to give you a CAT scan. CAT scan looked weird. Fast forward about a month, and I get to the point where I'm finally being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis after MRIs and all the other tests and all that stuff, talking to a neurologist. He's a good neurologist, explained MS very well, but kind of the crux of my position here is being diagnosed with MS needs to be seen as a good thing. Having MS, not a good thing, but being diagnosed is, because you can finally get treated. You finally know why all this weird crap has been happening to you for years and years and years. But because this neurologist, he described MS exactly like you'd want to describe it, but when it came time to A, tell me that I had MS, and B, tell me about the treatments, I know now that it wasn't what it could have been, and it wasn't what it should have been. I had my wife with me at the time, and I'm sitting kind of, up on the sort of table that they have you sit on. He sits down next to me, and he goes, this is so hard. It's just so hard. I hate having to do this. It's just so hard to have to tell you this. It was a little dramatic. It was a little over dramatic. But he tells me that I have MS. My wife is sitting there next to me because she was pretty sure that's what I was going to be diagnosed with. I was kind of saying, no, we don't know. It's probably not. We'll see. It's probably just something else. So she's hysterically crying. I'm sitting there stoically not crying, trying to kind of not freak out at the moment. And I left his office feeling like that was it. The world was ending, and I was on the fast track to being very disabled, and just there was nothing that was going to happen. He gave me some pamphlets for some of the medications that have been around for now more than 20 years, and kind of sent me on my way saying, choose a medication, let me know what you want to do, and get back to me. And when I left, I was absolutely devastated. I thought, like I said, I thought that was it. So I get home, and all I can think of is about my wife and how we've been married now for 2.5 years. She thought that she'd married somebody that was going to be healthy and would be around with her for the next 40 or 50 years. And now I don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years. And all I could think of was how unfair it was to her and how unfair it was for me and for my family. Over the next few weeks, after speaking with a coworker who I had known also had MS, and some other people who I trusted, I ended up going to see a specialist. And during the examination, talking with the specialist and talking with his PA, I did start to feel a lot better about it. And they presented me with a lot of good options for medications, a lot of current options for medications, took me through kind of in more detail where it was, but there was one moment that I'll never forget, and it's not poetic, and it's definitely not something that's a lyrical masterpiece. But when the PA looked at me and said, when we have patients that have to be hospitalized, we're devastated because it happens so infrequently. And just hearing that, and that was what I thought about for the rest of the appointment, and that's what I thought about on my whole way home, because that's when I thought, you know, maybe it's not going to be what I originally thought it was. Maybe I'll be okay. And that was the first time in about a month since I'd been diagnosed that I actually had hope for what was going to happen in the future. So it all comes around to what I was kind of started out with. Being diagnosed with MS should be a good thing, and I think there needs to be better communication in the medical community, especially with other neurologists who are not specialists, because many times we're diagnosed by people who aren't specialists and who aren't dealing with MS patients every day. That being diagnosed needs to be seen as a good thing, because you can start getting answers and start figuring out exactly what's going on with you and start a treatment and get it stopped. Thank you.